Hey everyone, it's Otteray, and today we're looking at the Rookery plus 12. So, we're going to start off by pulling a pack on the side. This one doesn't have a caster in it, and we're going to pull this entire group. We're going to get them grouped up, and then we're going to blast them. I do rely on the group quite a lot here to help get everything in, and for some reason, these Rookery guards are super awkward off to the side. I think someone even dies as a result of just the sheer awkwardness of this pull. It generally goes a little bit better than this, however, we do, pull it together and crush them all down. Yes, we missed out pretty much on entire DPS there just because of the awkwardness of the pull, and it's a little bit my fault there, but we still get the ads down pretty quickly, and then it gets a lot cleaner on the next pulls because we have all of our DPS left. So I'll go across here and I'll look to see which side I want to pull first based on where the pads are. It looks like the right side. It's good for me to go ahead and pull the first two. And then I want to focus the Void Rider here. Anytime there's a Void Rider and a Storm Rook, I'll want to pull just those two and not any more. As long as one of those is dead, I feel comfortable pulling into the next group. But the combination of AoEs that those two mobs do, I like to make sure we don't pull too many of those so it's not too much spike damage going out on the group. Nice and contained, semi-large pulls here, nothing too extreme, and we'll just work our way around the room. Once the mobs start to get low, you can go ahead and pull in the next pack, or you can finish out the Void Rider, completely up to you, as long as you're not pulling too much of the AoE style mobs that will get your group killed. I see that the mobs are staying spread and that the group is getting pretty low. In anticipation of more AoE going out, I go ahead and rally, just to make sure that we can get topped up as we continue to pull here. This group gets blasted pretty well, so we'll go ahead and head into the next one once the Stormrook is dead. This has two casters, not the most dangerous caster heavy pull in here, but pretty close to it. Immediately want to get stuns and interrupts so I can get the mob set and allow the other mobs to come in, although they die immediately. Try and save stuns until they're, half health or lower later, but these are getting crushed so fast it doesn't really matter. That'll matter a lot more on the other side whenever there's three casters in a pack. So we'll slowly kite backwards as we begin to cross the room, and then this next patrol can be a little bit weird because it gets close to the boss and it looks like you may even pull the boss, right? But you'll be fine. Just use your intuition on when it's clear of the other group and you can pull it in, and then you can do some pretty even pulls here, just like the other side, without overwhelming the healer or the group with too much AoE damage going out because of the Storm Rider mobs. See, you get kind of close to the boss there, but it's fine. Nothing to worry about. Steady pulling of the groups, focusing the Void Rider. We'll pull this group before the casters to make sure we get a good amount into the Stormrook and make sure the Void Rider's dead. I don't like to pull these AoE mobs with the casters because I feel like it spreads the group thin between having to worry about interrupts, placing in position in the mobs, as well as watching out for all of the heavy AoE that's going out. And so just quickly bursting these first before getting the casters is generally how I like to run it. I wasn't confident in the group's ability to get there in time to get those interrupts out, so I went ahead and stunned early. That's not ideal, considering how fast these mobs can cast. But one thing you can do is start getting additional knockarounds and stuff like that, knockbacks, knock-ups. anything to keep them contained and not cast as much. Anyway, so we'll pull the first boss. As always, if you can see through the grate, then you're in an unsafe area whenever the boss does his phase. If you're on solid ground, you're generally fine, and that's how this fight works. Avoid the bad, deal the damage. We're on solid, we're fine. Looking for where the beams are going to go. And the way this group likes to play it is just wait right on the edge of that last AoE, wait for it to come out and move forward. Never trying to chase the beam in front of you, never trying to move too fast for anybody. Just very consistent. And then rinse and repeat. I feel like this dungeon is not super difficult, but the reasons why it's difficult are very straightforward. Damage hit hard, right? So a lot of spread here. Some of the damage being avoidable is simply personal responsibility or doing the mechanics in time. Not respecting the spread whenever something's on somebody else and not getting out of it, it can lead to your death, right? So always respecting the mechanics, moving out correctly, and then dealing big damage. Continuing to attack the boss here, just really going through the phases. I generally like to tank it on the solid area so it's clear on where we should be as a group to start the kite phase, but I was a little bit off to the side here. I think it's still pretty straightforward where we all go. Yeah, we all group up on it. The beam goes the other way, gotta pay attention for that. And then we finish the boss as it lands here, and then we go down. I'm a dragon, so I generally avoid doing the mechanic here and just get down much faster. Um, this dungeon is pretty straightforward on what you can pull or what you need to skip, but this right here is a pretty easy skip on the right. You can just simply walk around it. Wait for the group to get here, and then my plan is to pull this group into the next one, so I'm going to let it patrol down as far as it can to make it easier for the caster to get there, and then we'll begin. Now this diffuser mob can be pretty annoying because it does very large AoE abilities like that on the ground, plus it does a pull, plus it targets a player with an ability. There's a lot going on there, right? And it's simply avoid what you can and keep the mobs contained, because the pool can get hectic if you try and spread out too far. Plus, a lot of that damage you can tank with cooldowns anyway, if you really needed to. Obviously, avoid what you can, like I do here, no problem, but as a DPS, it can be a little bit trickier. You can go extra far to keep the group safe if you need to. You can shield reflect, stuff like that, uh, to help mitigate the damage. But otherwise, the more you keep the mobs contained, the easier it is to uh, kill them all immediately. I mean, yeah, duh. Same thing here. And as far as placement goes for these mobs, I try and pull them right into the center of the room so that you can kind of move to the sides of the static AoE that's on the ground. And then I leave it up to, the player's personal responsibility to take out the other debuff that has the circle on it that can hurt players. I feel like they may have brought that one too far and it caused the crushers to just slowly wade back in there. Kind of killed our AoE there. But that's not a big deal. We'll finish this pack and then pull the next room. The next room can be a little bit dangerous just because it's more of these mobs, but uh, more condensed. You have to worry about mobs on the sides. But this is an area where if you're lacking percent or if you're wanting to do skips in other places, you can pick up additional crushers here on the sides and it's not a big deal. Like you could pick up an extra crusher right here, for example. Adds to the percent. You can keep it cleanly with these other two crushers in the pool. And that's that. Damage, damage, damage. We'll get these down pretty low before pulling the two fairly annoying diffuser mobs. And I'll try and keep these as stacked as possible for the ground AoE so it overlaps. It's a great time if it selects you to be able to get a shield reflect out. But I generally like to keep these mobs as still as possible so that people can predictably move out with their AoEs and not get too frustrated about trying to avoid others and not take damage. Not the most fun pull, and definitely why I just pulled these two by themselves. Although you could probably get away with pulling the whole room. It's just a lot more hectic that way. The next boss, you can pull the mob separately or into the boss. I kind of do a combination of both here, I believe, where I just really want threat on the mobs. And then pull the boss, basically. Allowing the group to do their thing, not really worried about getting too much in on them. So we rely on a good amount of group callouts here to make sure that we're spreading the debuff correctly, but you always want to make sure and spread it to somebody that doesn't have it, and it always goes to the person that's closest to you next. So as long as you're moving around a bit, it never gets distributed onto the same person too much. The tank can generally take 2 stacks. That's not an issue here, but it's also not something you need to go out of your way to do either. Possibly on higher keys, but certainly not on 12s. It's not that big of an issue. As long as it's not a DPS that gets 2 stacks, it's generally fine. If you do get 2 stacks on you, obviously use cooldowns, use what you need to. Kind of doing a rectangular pattern here where I'll kite back down this way. Same fight mechanics, same. Putting out debuffs, doing some pulls, putting down some bad. Crush reality. Right on. So this boss does have a good amount of health, nothing too crazy though. He's starting to get whittled down here, and we're beginning to look at how we're going to approach the exit and where I want to bring the boss there. So I'll stop kiting away from it and begin kiting toward it. Since it's only 3% left, we'll squeeze into the corner here, and I'll get ready to make a quick pull here on these. Get these nice and grouped, blast these. The crushers, just like before, they'll jump on people, so having people close to the group makes them not jump as far. You can continue cleaving. We're getting interrupts, and we're watching out for the orbs that are about to spawn the umbral wave. It's 2 waves of 4 orbs that you don't want to get hit by. Yep, pretty straightforward. There's several of these ascendants in the next area. We'll be focusing those mobs as we slowly pull pack to pack, and not trying to overpull or anything like that. Now, one mistake I do make here is I believe I don't pull enough civilians. I could have pulled more on the shelf. Obviously, this one has an ascendant on it. I want to avoid that. But I could have pulled this shelf, and then we wouldn't have to double back for percent later. I believe we are just a few percent shy, and it's because I didn't pull enough here. But we'll find out in the video in just a bit. I continue pulling. I want to make sure and get all the civilians with this guy because it's a little bit awkward to pull all those civilians into the next pull, even though it seems a little more straightforward to do it that way. I like to do it like this. The void zones have a good amount of health, and they're very large mobs. It can be awkward to see around them, and so I do like to just kill them before pulling the next pulls, mainly because of this stuff right here. With other mobs on top of that, it can make the edges fuzzy and hard to see. So we'll finish him, pull the next pull. If there is an ascendant in this pull, we'll focus interrupts on that and obviously watch the orbs. This is one of those areas where you could probably pull heavier. You could probably pull this into another group, or maybe into the previous group and then do the same with the next pulls, but we're just slow and steady through here and killing these pretty much the pack at a time at this point into the boss. Making sure to get interrupts, making sure that we're all grouped up for the crushers to keep the leap contained and the AoE going. Same as the last pull, sans the crushers. And one thing that's crazy about paladins is that I'm pumping AoE into these mobs and they're still pulling threat over me. It's so wild. And actually, that could have been the shaman there. The group in general, I do believe it was the paladin though, can sometimes just burst so hard that it can be hard. Even if I'm pulling what 2.4, 2.5 mil DPS, it's still not enough threat to keep it off of them. Sorry about that. Obviously, my AoE taunt just now coming off CD could have been used there to save him if I did not use it earlier. Anyway, we'll need to fully finish off this ascendant and then briefly wait to get him up to make sure we're fully prepared for the next pull, so we can continue blasting. I mouse over to check to see when my battle shot's ready for him because I used it too soon. Making sure to get the shout in the pull here. And then very quickly dispatching of the small mobs so they're not in the way during the Void Stone's cast. Finish this big mob off, and even if the crushers are still alive, I'd pull them into the next pact where you have both the Void Stone and an Ascendant. We'll focus the Ascendant and try and get all the smaller mobs down before he starts the Void Stone starts casting his cast again. A lot of group damage going out here. Let's see, we had a death. I believe that person touched an orb, but otherwise, a lot of the damage is pretty even across the board, and so just pretty heavy group healing there. Another umbral wave before this mob dies, watching out for the orbs again. Finishing this mob will get the res out and then start the boss. A general rule for not getting knocked in the water is the train tracks that are there, as long as you're on those, you should be fine for not aggroing the boss, but then not getting knocked in the water because of the knockback. So we'll try and line up here, get on the tracks like that, and not have to worry about any unfortunate water visits while we get this res out. Quickly buff and then pull this boss. We have some particular positioning here where we'll have me way off to the side, and I think really the goal of this is to make it easier for me to be able to shimmy the umbral waves and not, or the oblivion waves here, and not have to well, endanger the group with it, right? But I took that first one, still getting the positioning right, and then my goal each time here is to be far enough away that I can just run right like that, and then avoid the big hit of the oblivion wave. Can't say that I'm really great at it, but it is definitely essential to learn. And having that cast visible, knowing whenever it's coming, right whenever you need to move to the side, can help a lot with getting out of the way of it. Big burn DPS phases, using the cooldowns. Really want to work into this boss at these times. We didn't get a very good burn here on the first one, but we make up for that in the next one. And so we actually save potions. Lust isn't ready is one of the reasons why there. And so once the lust is up and everything is going to align, we get a much better burn in the next phase. Again, trying to avoid the umbral wave. Did I call it umbral wave? The oblivion wave again. Getting hit by that, as you can see, it pretty much instantly takes you to 50%, and it's totally avoidable if you move correctly. Now we're going to big burst him. We have lust going. We get our potions going. And that's really how you want to do this boss. You can really minimize the amount of phases you need if you lay heavy into the damage phase with everything you got and have everything line up like that. Once again, getting hit by the wave, not great. I think I could back up a bit more to give myself more room for it here. But it's really most important to avoid it during this phase, whenever there's a lot going on in the group, because you don't want to split the healer's attention with some burst tank damage that they're not expecting, right? Another strong 100% DPS phase on the boss. We're going to do as much as we can here to get him as low as we can. Crushing him at this point. I'm not sure how that one hit me, but it did. Could definitely do better avoiding these. Anyway, rinse and repeat here. We're about to knock the shield down, and then we'll finish the boss for the last burn phase. And that's that, a pretty straightforward run of the Rookery on plus 12. Sweet. See you in the next one.